6092. Y si quiere conectarse con nosotros ahorita en la radio, puede llamar a 561-660-7653. Aquí estamos para ayudarlos, y si necesita descubrirse que él tiene talento, puede ir a la página www.descubriendoidolo.com. Puede llamar al número 561-541-1878. Y saludo a todos los pastores en África que me están viendo, al pastor Moisés, al pastor Joshua, al pastor Sifuna y el pastor Matthew, que es todo, me están, yo sé que es tiempo para dormir, pero ellos están esperando que nosotros podamos salir. I say hello to all the pastors in Africa, Kenya, to Pastor Sifuna, Pastor Matthew, Pastor Moses, Pastor Joshua. I say everyone hello. Thank you to watching from Africa, Kenya. Dr. Heidi?
Greetings, greetings, everyone. It's great to be here. Wonderful show tonight, and we want to welcome everyone. Wonderful.
And we just want to introduce Dr. Douglas.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Douglas, and I'm looking very forward to continue this conversation tonight regarding domestic violence.
Yes. So, lo que estamos diciendo, que está saludando la doctora Douglas, que dice que está agradecida de estar aquí para hablar sobre violencia doméstica. Okay. Dr. Douglas?
Yes. The question came up is, what is domestic violence? What does that mean? It has so many different definitions to people who want to understand, and a different definition for those who could care less. But most important, it is violence and abuse in the home, among partners, among acquaintances, among companions. And it's also very degenerative. And I mean that because children suffer from the knowledge of domestic violence. It's like a bullying to them. They experience it in their classrooms because, as you know, the classroom becomes a domestic hostile place if it includes any violence or any abuse. Then they go home and they find it at home, where they see it among their peers, their older brothers and sisters, their mother and their father, their grandmother, the elders as well. Domestic violence also includes a sexual assault. There is also that of date rape or date violence. I've been in situations with clients who were dating, young teens dating, and the young man on the young lady would say, "You're going to do it my way or no way." That's a first sign that there is some violence in the domestic relationship. So this evening we want to talk about that a little bit, how it covers people worldwide. It's not an independent one country situation. It transfers, it's transcontinental. It's in the church as well. Many times I work with faith leaders on how to counsel others in domestic violence situations. Some ministers have said, well, I take them to the Bible. And that person may not be there to take it to the Bible. That person needs some real other type counseling. And whenever that faith leader gets involved to the point where they know not else what to say, then that's when they call the emergency social service number to offer some assistance. There's some situations in the faith community where the husband and wife are parishioners in the same congregation, and they may have just arisen that morning from a domestic violence situation, some arguing, some pittering, and then they get to church and praise hallelujah are so different. Some people they call fake. Fake news, there's fake Christianity as well. And that can happen within domestic violence partners. The unforeseen possibility of it becoming something that is curable. And I say it's unforeseen because it takes quite a bit of counseling. It takes quite a bit of trust in a relationship. So I say to those that I'm counseling, first begin to trust in yourself. Once you begin to trust in yourself, then you know how to go to your Lord and trust Him, trust His messages to you. In any love situation, you hear some people say that love and trust are hand in hand. If you trust, then you love. If you love, then you trust. That's not always the situation if you haven't learned to trust yourself. Learn to know who you are, what your purpose is in life. If your purpose is to remain in an angry home with an angry situation, then that's where you're going to be. But if your purpose is to get out of that angry situation, remembering that the other person who is the abuser is an adult. One adult cannot train and live up on another. It takes outside counseling to help the situation. The same thing with elders. There are so many elders being abused by their children, by their spouses, as well as their grandchildren. Can you imagine how many teenage grandchildren come in the home and say, Grandma, you're going to do it my way or no other way? And that grandparent who has almost had enough is allowing it to happen, empty their purses to the grandchild. That's also degenerative because that child learned it. That's learned behavior. That's not biological generational behavior. That's learned behavior. And learned behavior is like listening. We do not have to listen unless it's learned how to listen. For instance, we have five senses. The sense of feeling, which is touch. The sense of hearing, smelling, seeing. The senses we have, they come with us from the time before we're born. But to listen, to understand is learned. So understanding becomes learned behavior. When I mention trust, I mention love, but first there comes understanding. There's so many people that may come home to their family and say, I'm in love. He's in love with me. She's in love with me. But what does that mean? Does that mean that you understand the individual that you're in love with? Because if you don't have understanding first, there's no love. Okay, and then from that understanding, there's trust. Remember, you're trusting in yourself. You're trusting in your Lord. And then you begin to trust in that significant other. All of that is a basis of love. If one has those characteristics in their relationship, then there's no need to look further because there is no domestic situations of violence and abuse. Some folks say, well, he didn't hit me. He just curses at me every day. That's mental anguish, mental abuse. And how do you get away from that is to first realize that it's not where you want to be. Help another person who is supposedly in love and understanding you, help them to see first, that's not where I want to be. If that's where you want to be, then you're going to be by yourself. There's also laws out there that say it shall not happen. We're involved so much today with the new generation of mankind that says that we are not going to live equally with national origins. And that's so unfortunate because that's also hinders how much people can move about and begin to say to societal laws that I won't take it anymore. No one wants to see their spouse taken out of the country, for instance. But if anyone's arrested, for instance, there are immigrants who are living in our country and other countries abroad, and they are now in domestic disputes, they don't want their loved ones to have to leave them. They want their loved ones to get help. So a lot of times it's not reported, and it continues. And you'll notice in the news, there are more and more situations of this. There was a situation not long ago in the United States, Florida, where a young lady, she was a Native American, and in Native Americans, they're sometimes a little bit abusive because of not understanding. This young lady went away to college on scholarship, the first of her tribe to be able to get away and to get educated outside. She was in college and she met a young man. She and the young man became first lovers, and then they married after she became pregnant with their child. He was not as equally qualified in college to get his degree as she was. She went away to his home, and there, because she was more welcomed among his family, because his family rejected him for not getting the full college education, he began to beat her. She knew that wasn't right, and where should she go? She couldn't go back to her native land because she accepted this other person who was not a Native American into her life. She had nowhere to go. She went to church. Her church said that there's nothing we can do for you because his family is a member of this church and you're new to us. So there's nothing we can really do except we ask you to pray. She was working at a restaurant, a well-known restaurant, and she became together friendly with the people there. So she was becoming somewhat acculturated, learning other cultures. And she learned that that was not the way to live. And so she began to back out of the relationship with her husband. So one night she went to work feeling that, okay, I'm finally making some roads, and that man came to her job and he decided he was going to kill her. So he went into the restaurant. He killed the people that he could encounter in the restaurant. When she ran out, he ran out behind her and he killed her. He ran out in the street. There were cars coming along and they saw what was happening. They began to try to run him down, and they did. That ended the life of two people. When I looked at pictures of the little child, 2 years old, he was not with smiling eyes, which told me that he had seen a lot of abuse in his home. So now we have this orphan, an orphan of an abuser, and an orphan of someone who accepted the abuse until she thought she could no longer take it. So what happens to the child? This was 2 years ago. Today I wonder where that child is, and when I began to research, no one could find him. So that's a sad story, but there are many other stories. If anyone can raise their hand and say that they know not one person that has ever suffered of cancer, then you know that's not true. And it's the same thing with domestic violence. If anyone can say that they know of not one person who has ever suffered from that type of learned behavior, then you know that's not true. It happens. It happens where some people are also defending others. There's a situation where as a child was in school bullying. Remember I said bullying is a form of violence? That child was bullying. And so when the teacher said they were not accepting it and wanted to expel the child, guess what? The mother came to school and wanted to shoot the teacher. So you see, that's something that was going on from the home in the beginning that was taken into the school environment. What you ask of me as a behavioral scientist is what can we do? And I say what we can all do is to make one another and others aware of the situation, aware of the possibilities of not creating any more instance or substance to the situation. Teach your children. Teach those around you. Just as you teach them how to hold a fork and a knife, you teach them how to be kind to one another. And one instance of that type of relationship leads into another. There's also, as I mentioned, sexual abuse. Yes, sexual abuse is a form of violence. It's not just rape. It's the intention of, the thought of, the act of, and violence begins. Can you imagine that you're in a nice, comfortable conversation in a room with others, and suddenly someone starts screaming, "You're not going to sit over here"? Where did that anger come from? There are a number of institutions that work with men called violence and with anger management. I sat in a courtroom here in Florida where a judge was talking to and trying to counsel with violators who were domestic violence abusers. And I found that many of them, when they walked into the courtroom with cuffs on their hands and in their little yellow uniform, they turned around in the courtroom and they saw the person that they had given that black eye to and sent kisses that way. And that individual can only say, "Ooh, that's my man." Now, how do you call someone your man that's put that black eye on you? Yeah, it was the neighbors that called and had him arrested. So the judge there had nothing but the laws beside her, which was to let him go. First-time offender, or she's dropped the charges. There's so many situations of this that cannot go on. I've heard of one young man who abused not only one young lady in his life, but several others as they came his way. But the laws would not allow them to arrest him and keep him. Finally, when he decided that he's going to get so angry with her that he sawed off her arm, while she was on the phone talking to her counselor, then they could get him. But that poor lady lost her arm. By that time, it was a little late. There were instances I've heard of in other states. There are so many state laws. See, domestic violence is ruled and governed by state laws in the United States. And there are so many state laws that are not in place. Every state is required to have laws against domestic violence. But some of the script is not written to help. There's one state, and I'm not going to name it at this point, but I know they know when I mention it, that indicates that we are against domestic violence in the home and any public institutions, period. That's it. No other policy. So and that particular state is now the third highest in the United States with domestic violence abuses and murders. In other countries, it's also sometimes a practice because it's willingly, knowledgeably known that it is the way the culture lives. But it's not always the way the people in the culture want to live. And it's up to those people to make a decision, to make a change. So how do you make a change when that is the law of your country? If that is the culture of your country? Is you talk with others about how to make a change. And you group together so that there are no biases against the want to make the change.
Wow. That's powerful.
Thank you.
And also that that has a lot to do with communication as well. If there is no communication, and at the same time, if the person, if both parties, if their love tank is half full or empty, there will always be something like that. Sadly, yes.
Gotta trust your instincts. One thing I think that you brought out was that a lot of domestic violence happens with parents or grandparents, you know, especially these extended families where a lot of families, especially nowadays, have to move back in with each other. You see where like grandchildren are, you know, encroaching on the grandparents, and the grandparents are indebted to the grandchildren just to get food or to go anywhere, and they become so dependent. Because I remembered I had a client one time, and that was the case where the grandparent was afraid of the family members in the household. So in the part, there was some emotional abuse there. Could be some violence there on some of the family members' part, where they become so afraid of, you know, especially the younger ones in the household. But that's one thing that you hardly hear people talk about. You hear about the spousal abuse, or, you know, abuse of like intimate partners, but a lot of times you have domestic violence with grandparents being abused by children in the household. So that's something that you pointed out that's hardly talked about.
As a matter of fact, I have an artist today who came to me. She was telling me, I'm going to come and sit right there because I'm sorry.
Yeah,
because there's this to share. There's an artist who came to see me today. He was telling me he was at work, and his boss was telling him that, screaming at him and telling him that why you so slow? Because that man is a little bit heavy. Why you so slow? You're stupid. You're not going to accomplish anything. And I told him, what did you do? This is what you call, is a form not only like mental abuse, and also it's illegal. So something like that. What kind, based on being a doctor, being in the field, what advice is there? Is there a remedy for something like that?
Is there a remedy for someone belittling others?
Mentally.
Oh my goodness.
Again, that's understanding. And like you described the individual, you said that he was a little heavy and he was moving slow. And so that's of knowledge, education, is that someone who is slighter in size will move more rapidly than someone who is a little bit obese. So that's knowledge of that individual, not understanding to say, oh, well, he has to move slow because the nature of gravity says he cannot move faster.
And he embarrassed him in public in front of everyone.
Oh, that's an insecurity on the individual then who embarrassed him. He's a little insecure and decided that to make himself look better, he's going to make somebody else look bad.
Bueno, lo que están hablando es sobre violencia doméstica y estaban hablando sobre cómo los muchachos, los niños abusan de los abuelos, que nunca lo había pensado, que cómo quieren obligar a los abuelos y los abuelos llegan a tener temor a su propio nieto. Y entonces violencia doméstica viene en cualquier forma, que no solo viene que un hombre golpea a su esposa, viene en cualquier forma como los muchachos jóvenes golpean a su abuelo y cómo ordenan para que los abuelos le den cosas y los abuelos tienen temor a sus propios nietos. Y están hablando sobre eso y es bien interesante. Pueden llamar al teléfono 561-660-7653 si necesita conectarse con doctora Douglas o quiere conectarse con la doctora Heidi. Aquí estamos para ayudar, por eso traje 2 psicólogas para poder ayudarlo, para que puedan ustedes salir de esa violencia, porque no es bueno tener violencia, porque hay mucha gente, como estaba diciendo ella, que se casan con una persona y la persona viene de otro país y tienen ese corazón tan duro que quieren controlar a la mujer. Y estaba hablando que como una muchacha se casó y salió a otro país con el esposo y el esposo lo golpeaba a la pobre mujer porque los padres lo aceptaron a ella con amor y a él lo habían rechazado. Entonces él fue y sacó a la muchacha de donde ella trabajaba, le pegó, la mató y vino él y otra persona lo mataron a él. Imagínate cómo es violencia doméstica. Y eso queremos ayudar si tú estás en una relación violencia doméstica, usted tiene que salir de esa relación, si no, esa persona te puede matar. Anybody have a question?
Well, I think one of the worst things for a lot of people now is that the resources are so limited that I've seen, especially in this county, where it's like they always tell a woman, make sure that you have a plan. If you want to come out of a domestic violence situation, make sure you have a plan, you know, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, so you can act upon it eventually when the time comes. Because I've seen like even shelters having waiting lists for domestic violence shelters. So it's terrible. You can report the case and whatever happens in the legal system, but sometimes when a woman is trying to get to a place of refuge, sometimes there is no place of refuge, and then it becomes a problem. So you see a lot of people, they just deal with the issue of being abused. But I think one of the things that men or women need to do, like you're talking about the trust, you have to trust your instincts. Because when you know that when you start a relationship and you notice that something is not right about the other person, it's like that because you talk about the 5 senses, but then you have to talk about the 6th sense, you know, that sense within you that starts, the antennas or the hair starts, you know, going up, or that's what you have to really trust yourself to know that something is not right. And you always, a lot of women, I think when you're young, you're vulnerable, or young guys, you're vulnerable. You know, especially when you have a relationship and you're so excited to be in a relationship and you want to have a girlfriend, a boyfriend, or whatever, but you always have to be in tune to things that are happening in your relationship that's not right. And if you know that you become afraid to tell somebody or embarrassed to tell somebody about it, then you definitely know that something is not right about that relationship. So you should always try to work on your plan to get out, especially early on. Work on, you know, looking for those things that don't seem right within the relationship so you can move out of it early on. Then next thing you get stuck, because it always gets worse, violent, where it might be, you know, a little put down or a little pinch, or these little things, and then it escalates into, like you said, cutting someone's limb off. My gosh, that is like really cruel. And
I believe Dr. Douglas, that was a macho man that done that.
Actually, he was a little peon.
Yeah.
It was not even, that was his way of asserting his power.
Yeah, power and control.
Well, I believe that I think women, I don't understand, but I wouldn't can't be no domestic violence. I don't know what I would do because I'm a fighter. I wouldn't do like a tiger.
But you say you're a fighter, but if you're in a situation, you think about it, if you're in a situation where, yes, you've come up as a fighter, you know to fight and you know to love, and you have a situation where you have a child involved, how much fighting you're going to do.
Yes, it's hard.
Because then it becomes, well, who was at fault? That's determined by a third party, like some legal advisor. And then what happens to your child? So at some point you become a little bit submissive in order to work on that plan A. And then, like Dr. Heidi says, having a plan B, and that's important. Yes. So before you start fighting, because I've seen fights where some young ladies, when they fight like claws. They close their eyes and then they just start whipping their hands and closing their eyes and fighting. There's nothing in front of them. And that's the same thing. A blind fight is not going to help. So you have to have a plan. And then you fight. You fight to make your plan work.
That's it.
Yeah, because you don't want to be the one that ends up in jail.
Yes.
That's true. Gotta be smart.
Yes.
Yeah, and working on that plan.
I just want to say out there, anybody listening, can you please call 561-660-7653 if you want to speak to one of the psychology doctors, because we're here to help you out. We're here to allow you to teach how to be strong and how to get out of domestic violence relationship. But what Dr. Heidi was saying, she was saying about the shelter, that they prefer that don't have any shelter for that person, instant to help that person.
There's a waiting list.
I imagine they could kill that person. What are you going to do?
I don't know.
And they said, what are they going to do? That's when the community comes together.
Yeah, church.
The community comes together. There are some people, even in hospitals, that say, I know of a family that will be able to help you. The nurse will whisper in their ear, they're trying to treat the individual. If that individual truly wants to get out of the situation, there is a way.
Yes, oh yeah.
There is a way. If
Yeah.
you really, truly, now I've had an incident where it was a young man. He came to one of my seminars, and he was there with his son, very nice looking young man. And I said to him, I would like for you to be in a scenario. Do you mind? And he said, oh, no, I don't. What would you like for me to do? I said, I'd like for you to pretend that you are the victim. And this woman over here, who you don't know, is going to pretend that she is the abuser. And I want you to approach this table of ministers to see how they would react when they're giving this live situation. He said, okay. He said, that would be easy. It's all right. So he went to the table, and this woman who he didn't know was after him. You better not tell them anything about me. You better not go in that room and say anything about what goes on in our house. And he went in anyway. And he was pretending that he was the victim, and he went for help. And he said, you as my ministers of my church, I need help. And the ministers, they forgot all their training because they thought this was real. They didn't know it was a situation for them to be tested on what they just learned. And they lost all of the things that they were being trained in. And they said, oh, the Lord says, and Jesus will be with you. And that young man said, I know that, but I need some help now. This woman is after me.
Yes.
And so and then the woman came in and she acted out. I don't care about you, Mr. So-and-so preacher. He's not going to do what I said. He's not going to do what you say. He's going to do what I say.
Yes.
And at that point, the minister said, well, son, you're going home with me. That was all he could think of, was to get this young man out of the situation.
That's it.
Now, at the end of the entire situation, and the audience there were able to view, and they were congratulating the two actors, the young man turned around and said, "It was easy for me because I have been the victim.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm here to this conference, because I wanted to see and hear." He said, "Look at the cuts on my arm.
Wow.
This has come from box cutters that my woman used to use on me
Mhm.
when I wouldn't do what she wanted done."
Mm.
He says, so I was so caught up in what happened, because I didn't realize I had chosen someone from the audience that this had really happened to.
Yeah.
You know, but he was able to share. It was actually put onto the local news stations, and it was because the news was there to capture this during this domestic violence month, awareness of domestic violence. But you never know. Like you said, the shelters are full. They're almost closed to men. That's so unfortunate. You know, if that was somebody's son, that was someone who was raised in a decent home, who was not going to accept that abuse. So we have to have shelters open to the men and the women.
Yeah, that's true.
Here in the United States, what I notice is that the YMCAs and the YWCAs are more open
But
to
there's
training and
Still a
making
waiting list
awareness.
for them.
Really?
But they're still open to training
Oh,
and
yeah.
awareness.
Education, yeah.
Yes,
Big,
the
big.
education and that helps. So when you say there's a waiting list to be sheltered, there's no waiting list to the education
That's
of
true.
it. To
Knowledge is a
prevent,
power.
yes, to prevent from having to go in the shelter. There's something else that I noticed around the country. In England, they have women groups who come together, and they're like cooking classes, and they come together and they talk about their cooking. In the United States, we have a lot of book clubs where people come together and they read books. And in the other countries, there are different things. They come together and they have children groups together. But those are your peer associations. That's where you can begin to talk on the subject of. Not even if it's in your home. Like I said, it's in the home of somebody you know. So that's where you begin to bridge with one another, to have a plan to help someone who may knock on your door.
That's another this question. You think that the church could get involved with domestic violence and think about more about the men and people need shelter out there? Because remember now, the church is a place where the community go.
Yes, I do. And I've seen it happen over the years. Having shelters for domestic violence is fairly new in this decade. It was not available at all in previous decades. And it's the church that was always the one that was available. And they would take sometimes their back room to shelter people. When I was working in New York City, I ran a shelter for men at the church. I worked my full 8-9 hours in my job. I had children at home. But I would leave my job and go to the church and open up a shelter for men to come in. And these were men who had no other place to go because they were being abused at home. Now there at the shelter, we fed them, we worked with them, we had counselors to come in and talk with them, we had social service groups to come in and help find housing. We also had groups to come in and help them with clothing, because many of them left their home rather than fight. They needed to have a place. And in the morning, the bus would come and pick them up and take them back out to agencies helping them to look for work or taking them back out to go to work. And I would get up in that morning and go to my job. And somebody would say, well, you slept there all night with those men? I said, they were not there to help me. I was there to help them.
That's it.
And so there are those going on in the church. They're in our county here in Florida. We do have a faith group leadership symposiums. I lead and some others lead. And we talk to ministers around the county. And we talk to them about what they can do in their ministry. I've had a number of faith leaders come and say, how do I start a ministry? What should I do first? And that's where I come called on to help them get started and what to do first. And the material that I gave to help begin with, you'd be surprised at how much I have stored away, because there are so many domestic violence associations around the country that pour it into me because they know I'm willing to get it out. And not just for folks to say, here, read about it, but I'll work with them to help them understand what they're reading.
Yeah, because I think that's part of the problem, especially for the black church, getting that knowledge out there, that education out there. And even more so for the young people. I think a lot of kids, because they grow up into that background of domestic violence. So young men, as they start intimate relationships with young women, and vice versa, they learn, they start to act upon what they learn in their household. And I think maybe, I'm not going to give an excuse, but sometimes because of what they learn, they start to feed upon that, and that's their response to whatever the situation. And so knowing that education and that knowledge of what to do, how to better respond when something comes up, will help, the young people. So I think that's majorly needed, even in the high schools.
In the high schools, they have peer counseling, and the subject should come up. Some folks are afraid because they're told what goes on in this house stays in this house, and don't take it out of the house. But you have to know when to take it out of the house, what to say, get to the right person, not to the gossiper, but to the individuals who's going to help you with that.
But that power and knowledge, I think kids need to learn it though, because there's so much, when you're young, you're so vulnerable, you don't even realize what is going on until it gets really. And that's what happens to a lot of young people. You see so many young people being abused, being violated at such a young age. And I think, because I know they have different classes, for young people in the high school even now. But domestic violence, maybe I skipped that part when I was in my life skills class, but I don't even recall that they really got into depth about certain issues like that we need to address, that need to really open up our eyes to that understanding.
Well, I have a question. I think I asked both of you all, I think that the church is supposed to be involved in having psychology to teach the young generation, and not just the young generation, to teach people who is involved and have a marriage. Because when we come to the church, we pretended that everything is perfect, but you don't know behind that door what is going on, and then the person that's scared to come and talk to the pastors. And I believe, like the man of God, then we'll talk about the word says. It's easy to say that the word says so, but it's when you're going through persecution, when you're going through difficult time. I think that they need to have psychology doctors to come and have a conference for people who been abused.
Yes,
I believe that, because God said it's going to be you're going to live in the house is where you're going to be deliverance. It's going to be manifestation. Anything that you need is in the house of God. So why are we not having that in the house of God?
We really need to, and sometimes I wonder if the ministers are afraid to approach it. And I found that in a number of churches. There are some churches that have lady group meetings, and what do they talk about? You kind of stay away from the subject.
Yes.
And it's important to envelop the subject with the right people.
Yes.
With, like you said, having persons, psychologists, educators, etc., to help move the subject along.
I think it has a lot to do. They're afraid somebody might judge them. The church, how could I be in the church at the same time something like that taking place? It's a lot to do. I find out so many people in church, they put like a mask.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
They put a mask instead of for them dealing with the issue at hand. They act like it's nothing.
Yes.
They cover it. Sometimes you even find the pastor's spouse is a victim.
Oh yeah, a lot of times.
How could I tell the congregation I'm a victim when I'm supposed to be a beacon of light for them? It has a lot to do. So it's time for us to stop to remove the mask. Stop pretending.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
The sad part, she might be the victim sitting right there in front of her husband, while the husband is condemning other people while he's the king of the abuser. Abusing doesn't mean
Absolutely, I've seen
you know what I
that.
mean?
Yes, I've seen
Abusing doesn't mean that physical. It could
Yeah,
be
emotional.
emotional.
Right.
She
The
probably,
control,
while she was in
power.
the car before she entered the congregation, she had to wipe or go to the bathroom, wash her face.
My God.
And he has to have the courage for him to just stand there and give a great sermon about domestic violence. And he's the king of it. You know what I mean?
I've seen that, I've heard that, I've been in that situation where I've counseled with that, and you'd be surprised.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd be surprised. Right here where we live, and I'm sure in other places, in other countries, it's the same thing. And it's because that's a part of what Dr. Heidi mentioned, control, power, and authority.
Oh, yeah.
It's one thing that I say to counselors is that when someone comes to you, it's not about you. It's not about you, the counselor, to say,
Personalized.
Charles, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was in that situation at one time myself. It is not about you, counselor. It's about you to tear that portion of you away and help the person who came to your door seeking help.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Kind of detach yourself.
Well, I think all pastors are hearing what Dr. Douglas and Dr. Hyde is speaking about. I think it's time to open a door and try to help your people them to, well, not your people. This is God people them. But it's time, because God put you there to be a minister, is to teach the people to do better.
Wow.
It's something is good to preach and preach and preach, but you really need deliverance still.
If I may, what is the word minister?
He minister the word.
If you minister, why come he doesn't open the door to minister to these abusing people, to minister the word of freedom?
Because I
If he
believe
cannot do it, bring someone like
that
one of you
one-
ladies, okay, come. Would you charge them?
Yes. No, I wouldn't. I don't charge. No.
No.
I don't. My church, no. I
That's
do
it.
not charge because it's coming from the heart.
There we
You
go.
see, because
help
I was
is come on.
placed there to
Right.
do a job,
Yeah.
you know, and I was placed there by my Lord to do the job, and He didn't tell me to charge them.
That's
right.
He said, "You're there for a purpose. You're there for me. So
Sit
follow
down.
what I
Edify
say."
We need-
and build up.
You ladies, I'm so happy for this show because you know so many women in the social media who are hurting,
That's true.
who are struggling with something like that. The facts that you bringing a subject that is so taboo right up front and educating the population. I believe that the whole world, because you know some third world country is the norm.
Yes.
Wow.
Is the norm. Is not only in the United States, but third world country is the norm, especially certain country that even the spouse cannot walk next to them. He has to be walking like 2 or 3 steps behind.
Wow.
So it's yeah.
Yeah.
I had a situation one time where my grandchildren, I made sure that they had taekwondo and jujitsu and all that, so they knew how to defend themselves. So one of my grandsons came home and he'd been beaten up.
Wow.
And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, this girl keeps bothering me." I said, "Well, why didn't you hit her back?" He said, "I don't hit girls."
That's it.
I said, "But I sent you to school for all this, defensive
Training.
Not to
training."
hit, not to hit
Girls.
women.
He
Yeah.
said, "No, I can't do that."
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, what I want you to do tonight is to ask God, what can you do to help this girl understand it's not her position to hit you?"
True.
And he had his answer. His answer was the next day in class, the teachers wanted them to all show some talent. And he happens to be a singer. And so he sang his song, "Heal the World."
Wow. Making
And that
a better
little
place.
girl broke down in tears.
Aw.
Went home, told her
Aw.
mother about it, and the mother came to class and said, "I want to hear this little boy sing that had my daughter in tears."
Wow.
Wow.
it made a difference.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
It made a difference. But that's the power of prayer and
That's
believing.
it. That's it.
Speaking of which, tonight nobody talk about Discovery Idols.
We're talking about Discover
She
because
said it in Spanish.
yes, we're talking about Discover because we discovered it. And she already discussed, so she's showing somebody to discover themselves. Bueno, buenas tardes. Habla Evangelista Yolanda Blanford. Solo queremos saludar a todos. Es que estamos hablando sobre violencia doméstica, domestic violence.
Yeah.
Y es bien interesante de saber muchas cosas que está pasando alrededor del mundo, no solo en Estados Unidos, sino alrededor del tercer países. Y yo sé que hay mucha gente que está escuchando ahorita y nos puede llamar al 561-660-7653. Y si necesita hablar con el director, por favor, llame al 541-1878. Puede hablar con él, conectarse con él, o si alguien quiere estar aquí con nosotros, puede llamarme y podemos a nosotros traerte al estudio si tiene algún testimonio que quiere ayudar a otra persona para que la persona pueda avanzar en su vida. Y eso es lo que traje a la doctora Douglas, para que ella viene a enseñar su testimonio, va a dar su testimonio para gente que necesita ayuda, y la doctora Heidi. Y estamos aquí descubriendo talento. So, estamos aquí ayudando personas que quieren avanzar, y estamos promoviendo artistas, banda, y también si quiere registrarse solo cuesta $99.99, pero hay que registrarse, porque si no se registra no podemos tocar su música a 7 días a la semana, 24 horas. Hay que registrarse si quiere ser famoso, si quiere ser ese artista, gran artista, y dejar legacía para su familia.
Right. Right. Because I think, especially when we're talking about the issue of domestic violence, I think a lot of people, they might be a gifted artist, and sometimes they might be frustrated, don't know where to put all that, bottle up all that power and control. But that's the way that you do it. You put it in your talent. You put it in your gifts, rather than beat somebody up or emotionally put somebody down. Right, just
Singing.
just get discovered. Call Mr. DT at the 561-531-6092, and that's why we're giving you an outlet. You don't have to be pent up and frustrated. Or 561-541-1878. You don't have to be all burdened down.
Yes.
You know, if you're a country singer, you got the blues and you want to sing the blues, you don't have to get violent, you know.
Yeah.
Or you're a rock and roll singer. You don't have to put it out.
He could rock on the guitars.
You don't
have to beat a woman.
Yeah, you don't have to take it out on somebody else. So this is an outlet for you that you can take the opportunity to do something with your life. If you feel like your life not going in the direction that you want it to go, you want to be discovered, you want to be an artist, you want to be a singer, musician, you want to be an actor, you know, even if you have some talent of taekwondo, or you know, because Mr. DT, he's into bodybuilding and he's a martial
everything.
artist. So if you want to talk to him, just give him a call at 561-541-1878. So
go www.discoveryidols.com.
Right, go to www.discoveryidols.com. So the opportunity is here for you, and we're here for you to help you, to encourage you. So there's no more excuses. We shouldn't have any more violent abuses being reported on the violent hotline, or we shouldn't have we shouldn't have any more reports, because the opportunities are there for everyone. So give us a call if you have a testimony, or if you wanna, if you have a comment, or you want to ask us any questions at the 561-660-7653. If you have a burning question or comment or something that you want to say, you want to let us know, you can put it out on Facebook, or you can call us 561, because we will be off the air pretty soon, so don't let the time pass you by. 561-660-7653.
I posted if they want to call.
Great, wonderful.
So, estamos hablando sobre si alguien tiene alguna pregunta, puede llamar al 561-660-7653. Cualquier persona que quiera hacer una pregunta a las doctoras, aquí estamos para ayudar y vamos a seguir trayendo más profesionales, doctores del corazón, doctores. Hoy ya el Señor me está poniendo muchas cosas que hacer, quiero ayudar a las personas que están viendo para que puedan encontrarse a sí mismos. So my question is, doctors, why the jailhouse is so full out there with just men?
It's not full with just men.
And women too.
It
Violent
is
women.
filled with women as
Violent
well.
women.
Because there are women who fight back.
Oh, yeah.
like
They
those
kill
ones.
their spouses. Yeah, their partners. Oh, goodness.
I know
Wow.
someone who's been getting beat up quite often. Is
Yeah.
a man
Yeah.
getting beat up.
See that?
Violent spouses.
Getting beat
More and more you
It's
start.
harder for men
Yeah.
Yes.
because if they report it, they say, sure, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've
Yes.
seen
But I'm
men-
sorry, guys out there, you know that y'all getting beat up by women. But not all the women is same. There is some beautiful one out there, and very soft and delicate women.
Some of them they say the women beat him up. Cannot say that. Say, it's Allah.
Yeah.
It is.
Imagine that
It is.
having you with your boys and say, "What happened? My wife just beat me up. Oh my girlfriend."
That person can't talk. He can't. It's
Yeah, it's
embarrassing.
hard.
to say
It's
something.
hard.
Yeah.
It is very hard. But one thing that I say as a diagnosis for that going on in the home is to show love to one another. And it takes practice. It just doesn't happen. You have to demonstrate it. You have to show it. Court your wife. Court your husband. Court your children and let your children teach them how to court you. That's so important because it's not just to say, oh, I love you. Oh, I'll see you later. It doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
Touch, passion,
Of them.
that's all in the home.
Wow. So if the kids then don't get that love and that touch, then come to be like the parents.
They come to be somewhat hostile
Right.
because they're seeking it and they
Yeah.
don't know what else to do except go out in the street and try to find it.
One thing I realize that people do not communicate anymore. They don't sit down and solve issues.
That's true. Talk about it.
Even now, when I was growing up, if you get me upset, see men, okay, we upset, we cannot solve it, men and men, we punch each other after that, you say, okay, it's okay. Now, you get someone upset even at work, the only thing they believe, just take their gun and start shooting. It's really
true.
sad. Nobody communicate anymore.
True.
It's so important. It's a big word. It's a long word, communication, but it's so important.
Oh, yeah.
I teach a seminar called Enhancing Your Communication because some folks don't know how. They don't know how to communicate. They think that by some sort of mental telepathy, I'm sending a message across the room to you and you're getting it.
And you should know.
You should know.
She should know what I'm talking about.
One of the things to start
Right, he
is
should
ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
fixed his favorite dinner, but did he really want it? He ate a big lunch. So ask questions. Ask questions of one another. Listen to the answers.
Yeah.
And the best part, if you in a communication, it's always best to repeat what the person just said to make sure
There you get it.
it's the exact thing what the person said.
Exactly.
Did I hear right? You mean this,
Exactly.
yes or no? Then
Yes.
you give yourself time also to breathe, to understand.
Yes.
That's when you are listening.
And that's that's a good point. I call it paraphrasing.
That's it.
Put it into other words,
Right.
to be sure you understand.
And if you do that, 90% of the domestic violence will be solved.
A lot of it will. A lot of it will. You'd be surprised how that tenderness goes a long way. I sent messages, my daughters, my friends, we were texting one another about free food on Veterans Day. For anybody who's a veteran, you can go to a restaurant. And there was a number of them that called me Monday morning and said, I never thought about asking my wife to go to Golden Corral to get that free food. But when we did, we connected. It's just little things that make the connection. Little things.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, wonderful.
I'm one of the person I like. No, I'm not going to ask you that in the general public.
Okay.
I believe that the young lady, everybody told you that there will be an event on December 23rd.
Yes. No. But
And
she
I
better-
believe that you already say yes, you will be there.
I would like to be wherever you want me to be with what I can do
Hear
to
that? I
help.
like that word. What-
I love that.
I would
I
really,
love that. And also, by the way, be careful what you say
oh,
around me.
You know, allow her to finish.
Okay, okay. If I'm afraid if I let her finish,
Yes.
I'll get another surprise.
Yes.
okay, I would like to, I definitely would, but I'm
But-
coming across some
Surgery.
health surgeries that I have to encounter. Pray for me, I'm scared.
In Jesus'
The next
name,
couple
everything's
of
gonna be all right.
That's
it.
right.
It's done.
Okay.
Don't be
Done.
scared.
If
Break that
all of
spirit.
us, I mean, agree on that,
Yeah.
Yes.
and I'm telling you
Yes.
that I'm taking the name of God as a witness.
Yes.
In Jesus' name,
Yeah.
you will be all right.
Thank you. I
Healed.
believe,
Okay.
I believe.
And
so.
I believe after that, you will be here tell everyone how great God is.
Oh, yes.
Amen. Yes.
I believe
I
that.
believe that
Yes.
too. Thank you.
Yes. Ready?
Yes.
Ok, le queremos dar gracias a todos por estar en la media, escuchando y creo que estábamos hablando sobre violencia doméstica y le doy gracias a Dios y nos vemos el próximo lunes que vamos a traer más información y tratando de traer comunicación otros doctores que van a estar acá para ayudar a otra persona en cómo puede avanzar en esta vida y ser feliz. Y le damos gracias a la doctora Douglas que está aquí, que tomó su tiempo para venir acá. I just want to say thank you, Dr. Douglas, to be here. You take your time, or sacrifice time, to come to reach out to the community.
Let's everyone pray for her.
Y,
Yes.
y todos
We have
oren
to
por
create
ella porque
change.
ella va en operación, va a operarse y entonces dice que tiene un poco de temor, pero espero que todos los cristianos pueden orar por ella para que el Señor la sana totalmente. Que el Señor le bendiga a todo uno de ustedes y le doy gracias a la doctora Heidi que está conmigo, siempre ha estado conmigo, ayudándome y empujándome, que el Señor la bendiga abundantemente, y el doctor DT que es nuestro productor que está con nosotros. Os saludamos a todos y le decimos adiós, hasta la próxima semana.
Good night.
I would like to say hello to my good friend Federico Imiab. We're looking forward for you to perform December 23rd. Okay, my friend?
Federico,
Federico.
es español.
Federico, yes.
Oh, va a ser Federico.
is a great, he has his own band called Flash Guitar.
Wow.
The Flash Guitar, it's, this guy has a passion for
Dice que
music.
tiene una pasión para
Yes,
música.
it's a great
Ok,
great
Federico,
musician.
escucha eso, te están levantando el ánimo. So, quiero escucharte ese día con la guitarra eléctrica.
And the best part of when you heard about it is for the children, you didn't think twice, say yes, count me in.
That's wonderful.
Eso me gusta, que pone a los niños primero. Que el
Yep,
Señor te bendiga.
good guy.
Dice que es buenísimo.
Bonsoir. Good
Bonsoir,
night.
adiós, buenas noches, que el Señor le bendiga abundantemente.